Alright, peace be upon you, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Now, in today's video, I just want to speak about why I'm really only interested in Christianity and Islam. Why I primarily talk about Christianity and Islam, and I'm not concerned with these other strange religions like Yazidism or Baha'ism or, I don't know, Buddhism, Hinduism, because this is a common argument that atheists will use to justify their kufar, to justify their denial, which is they'll say, okay, you know, out of all the millions of gods in history, why is yours the truth? Or out of all the millions of religions in history, why is yours the truth? They kind of throw this theological dust into your eyes and, you know, try to blind you thereby. And I've already made a video on this, and I'll relay the previous argument I've made, and I'll add another one as well. So, this God of Christianity, Judaism, Islam, this Abrahamic God, you know, and we can debate, no problem, on who has the true understanding of that God, and I believe it's definitely Islam, at least the Quran. It gives us the purest rendition of that God, of that creator. But this Abrahamic deity, the creator of the heavens and the earth, his name has reached farther and has had more impact than any other god on the earth. If there is a creator, this is my response to the secular atheist. If there is a creator out there and he wants me to know him, he wants me to draw close to him, he wants me to have a relationship with him, he has certain expectations of my life, he has a law that he sent down he wants me to know, I don't think that creator would have tucked away that grand, perfect truth of his in some corner in the middle of nowhere, in some village in India or some remote little place in Africa or wherever else. Because if you look, the majority of these religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, they're tribal, they're local. But these gods in particular, not gods, this understanding, this milieu of the faith of Abraham, whether it be Christianity or Islam or Judaism or whatever, this has spread the farthest. And again, if I believe in this creator, that he wants me to have a relationship with him and he wants me to fulfill my purpose with respect to what he has laid down for me, I think that creator would have made that truth easily available and accessible to all peoples. It wouldn't be in some corner in India. So I was just sitting there and reflecting, thinking to myself, okay, I've studied a lot of religions. I wanted to know my creator for a long time, and I believe I've learned about him. But why have I, and why do most people, naturally we find ourselves focusing on Islam and Christianity, Islam and Christianity. And it's not just that we're Western, okay? We're not in the East and, you know, we don't have access to Buddhism. No, there's a reason why. It's because Christianity and Islam has reached farther than any other religion, and naturally, the creator, if he wants me to know the truth of him, he would make it easily available for all peoples. Again, he wouldn't tuck it away in some corner in the middle of nowhere. This God of Abraham has clearly demonstrated himself to be greater than any other small deity, Quetzalcoatl, Vishnu, Krishna, all these tribal, obviously tribal gods that people worship in their respective localities. He's shown himself to be greater because he spread his name further. If Vishnu was the truth and Hinduism was the truth, I think I would see more Hinduism around me, Hinduism more accessible, but I don't see it. So that's why at the very least, it makes me pay more attention to Islam and Christianity. And to add on to that, these other religions, Hinduism, Yazidism, Baha'ism, what else is there out there? Zoroastrianism, all these things, they don't do proselytizing. There's only, even Judaism doesn't do proselytizing either. There's only two main religions I see in the world, two main paradigms or milieus, and we can talk about obviously the hadith, and he doesn't have true Islam, that's a separate point, but there's two milieus that I see which are big on proselytizing and spreading the grand truth which they believe they possess, and that is Islam and Christianity. That's all I see. These people who claim to follow the Quran and these people who claim to follow the New Testament. And again, we have to be practical with ourselves. And where we came from, our position, and just consider that logically. Be smart about it. I am not Zoroastrianism is just not accessible to me. I'm not some Irani, Farsi person living in that area, ancient Mesopotamia, or I guess now it would just be Iran. I don't speak that language. I don't have access to that. So Zoroastrianism cannot be the grand truth that my creator wants me to know. And Zoroastrians, it's not like they're knocking my door, they're proselytizing. There's only two groups that their truth they believe is so grand, so large, so powerful and influential that they feel compelled to share it with strangers, to talk to people on the streets about it, talk to people. That's Christianity and Islam. And if there was such a grand truth of my creator that would bring me closer to him, I believe, like I said, it would be easily accessible and available. It would be right there for me to find. And, it's like these other religions, how can they be the truth for me? And I'm not saying it in a relative sense. How can they be what my creator wants me to follow when they don't even care about me? They don't even consider me. Zoroastrians, they don't, as far as I know, they don't care about getting converts. Hindus don't care about getting converts. Buddhists don't care about getting converts. It's just Christians and Muslims. It's just Christians and Muslims. Christians and Muslims, they care about getting converts. Their religion has considered me and wants me to be a part of it. So naturally, I will take them seriously and consider their claims and see if their position logically stands and if I want to be a part of it. We have to be, again, honest with ourselves and our identity and our position. They have considered me, so naturally I would consider them. A religion that has not considered me cannot be the truth that my creator wants me to follow. No way. And when we boil it down, and it's not even Judaism, because Judaism, again, they don't do proselytizing. It's a very racial, tribal religion. It's not for all of mankind. No way. No way. That's why they invent their little Noahide laws. It's primarily concerned with the covenant with this people called the children of Israel. It's not the children of all mankind. And at least the modern form of Judaism. And if we just boil it down to Christianity and Islam, I mean, I have demonstrated with a mountain of evidence that Islam is more faithful to the tradition of Abraham, to the majority of the Bible, than is the Christian religion. Undoubtedly, specifically Quran alone, Islam. If we can, this is just a way for us to clear off all of the clutter on our table. I honestly, and it might sound disrespectful, but, that's just how I see it. I consider Hinduism, I consider Buddhism, Yazidism, all these things that atheists like to bring up. It's all distraction. There's only two religions that are really fighting for my attention and for my belief. It's Islam and Christianity. And then once we boil it down to that, we clear up our table. It's so easy to show that Quran alone, Islam, this is the most faithful successor to that Abrahamic tradition. Just read my book, A Rebuttal of Every Objection Against the Quran, the Christian and Biblical Worldview Refuted in Favor of Quran alone, Islam. It's available in the description. It's free for download, and you'll see that. But, this kind of relativism that they push, this, there's so many options. So, not really. There isn't so many options out there. There's only two major options that have presented themselves to me in a way where I can access them, and that is Christianity and Islam. It's not as confused. This is why, not just me, most people who seek after God, they go after God, they want to find their Lord, most of these people, they tend to spend the most time on Islam and Christianity. These two religious groups are under the spotlight. Why? Because they have considered all of mankind. They have spread that truth the farthest. So I see it's got to be one of them. Like I said, I don't believe the great grand truth that God wants me to know would be tucked away in some corner in a village in the middle of India. Or this one freak, strange deity that nobody's heard about except for this tribe in Africa. I don't think that. No way. The Christian and Muslim milieu, they have shown through their resume, at least with their spreading of the Quran and the Bible, and Again, you could say they don't follow the Bible, the Quran, that's fine, but at least spreading of the name of the Quran, attention to the Quran, attention to the Bible, more than the Bhagavad Gita, more than the Epic of Gilgamesh, more than the Iliad, because of their resume and the attention that they have brought to these books, that makes me, that has earned me to take them more seriously than any of the other competing ideologies out there, because they're not even competing, they're non-players, so I'm not going to consider them and take them seriously. And that's really my mindset on the matter. And I just want to make things clear, I'm not saying that because the majority follow something that therefore that thing is correct. Not at all, not at all. I'm just saying that the positions that have, like I said, made themselves most present and known and available to me, they do deserve the most serious consideration. And then somebody might, you know, they might make an objection to me. They might say, oh, Waleed, well, Sunni Islam is more popular than Quran alone Islam, so why don't you follow that? Because the point is, Sunni Islam claims to be based on the Quran, right? Yes, okay. I can demonstrate, so whatever form of Islam, Shia, Ahmadiyya, Sunni, doesn't matter. All of them derive their importance from the Quran, right? They claim to be representing the Quran. The Quran is at the foundation. It is the birth of that tradition. At least if we accept each of the adherents of these traditions, a Shia, a Sunni, a Ahmadiyya, they're going to say they're following the Quran. The Quran is at the heart of their worldview, at least in claim. So I am going to study that book, which is so important, so valuable. So many people are bringing attention to it. Sunni, Shias, Ahmadiyas, Quran alone. I'm just going to study that and try to follow it as best as I can. And when I do, it leads me to the Quran alone position. I'm not talking about an identity or a group, you know, Quran alone ism. It isn't an ism. It's just this book, which the world is looking at, which has had so much attention put upon it. I'm just taking it seriously and trying my best to follow its claims. And its claims don't lead me to the Sunni religion. Its claims don't lead me to the Shia religion. That's it. So it's not about a majority. It's not about having a large group of people. It's about studying the heart of every tradition, that, you know, the center of it, the things that hold the most holy, which in Christianity is the Bible, and in Islam it's the Quran, and trying our best to follow this magnificent book, which so many, or these magnificent books, which so many people seem so eager to spread to the whole world because it's so important. That's what it's about, okay? So I'm not doing an appeal to a majority fallacy. I'm saying that I like to get to the root of things, the heart of things. Everybody here claims to be following the Bible. Everybody here claims to be following the Quran in the Christian and Islamic camp respectively. Let's look at those books which they find so important and just see what they have to say. And I recommend that to anybody. Go ahead, read the Bible, read the Quran. You will see which book is more clear. So that's what it's about. And the best way I could really word it is, again, the reason why I'm not considering the religions and I'm considering the books, I have a bias towards the books, the Bible and the Quran, and not these milieus that have surrounded it, is because these religions, any form of Islam, Sunni, Shia, Ahmadiyya, they're nothing without the Quran, but the Quran still exists without them. If you take the Quran away, they can't admit that we don't follow the Quran, because they're nothing without it. But the Quran exists independently of them. It has its own message regardless. Same thing with Christians. I can't be a Christian and say, oh, hey, I'm a Christian, but I don't follow the Bible. No, the Christians are nothing without the Bible. So again, if we distill things down to the holiest and most valuable aspect of every faith that has made itself available and known to me, it is the Bible and the Quran. That is why they deserve the most fervent and I should say the fullest attention that we can possibly give it, because these stand in the belly of that tradition. When you remove the Bible and the Quran, they can't say that. So that's why I'm a textual person. I spend my time on the book, and like I said, it doesn't lead me to the Sunni religion. The Quran does not lead me to the Sunni religion at all. So I really don't want you guys to mistake that. I'm not saying that I'm going to follow the majority. No, I'm saying I'm going to deeply consider the holiest things and the traditions that have spread themselves the farthest in the world. That's what I'm saying. So, you know, don't try to twist me up. Don't try to say that Waleed is committing a fallacy. I'm not committing a fallacy. Again, I'm just being practical about my location and who I am and where I am and what I have access to and what my creator would want from me in light of all of that. And I'm just going to repeat that point I said before. It's about us being honest with ourselves. Again, the creator would not want me to follow a religion which is inaccessible to me, or a faith which is inaccessible to me. He would make it known. He would make it available. And this God of Abraham has shouted the loudest, more than any other deity in the world. There's no comparison. Combine them all together. Combine Christian, every Hindu deity, combine it with every Mesoamerican deity, every other pagan god in the world, and have them shout as loud as they can, and they don't even equal 1/100th of the power of the voice of the Abrahamic God. He has shown himself to be the truth, and now let's look and see who best represents the faith that he wants us to follow. And we can only learn that by reading his words, the Bible and the Quran, and seeing what it has to say. So that's kind of my chain of reasoning. That's how I comfortably, and not in an intellectually dishonest way, disregard all of these cults around the world as a mere distraction. It's not dishonest. It's, again, just being honest with my position. It's being considerate of my position and who I am and where I'm coming from. And anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's really all I got to say on the matter. I hope this talk was a blessing. And yeah, peace to you. Remember, deceit abounds, so keep your eyes wide open. Peace out. Peace and blessings in the name of the Most High, viewer. My name is Waleed Naeem, and I am a zealous submitter to the one true God, the creator of all mankind. Do you notice something wrong with the world? Something strange? Despite us having a church, synagogue, and mosque in every neighborhood, how has this entire Western civilization fallen into abject atheism, nihilism, and savagery? Why does life just seem so dull, so meaningless, and so devoid of anything real in the Occidental world? Despite the ubiquitous presence of these religious institutions, why are our so-called Muslim sons in large numbers drinking, smoking, partying, and chasing after women, with no seeming desire to do anything more with their life other than satisfy their base pleasures, when God has commanded them to be clean, righteous, and responsible leaders of their community? And why are our hijabi so-called Muslim daughters walking around with tight jeans that reveal their figure, with TikTok accounts posting semi-provocative, self-absorbed videos of themselves online for the world to see, when God has commanded them to lengthen their garments and be modest in their mannerisms? What has happened here? These young men and women are supposed to be making themselves right before God, while raising the next generation of ardent defenders of the holy faith. But it seems that Islam features no more in their lives other than a scarf on their head, a Friday fidgeting around in the mosque when their parents forced them to go against their will, or a decorative hanger in their car. At this rate, if God allows us to continue going down the road it is, then Islam and the Quran will become pretty much non-existent in the lives of most of our descendants, if it wasn't already non-existent now. If we do not take a stand soon, in a few generations, our children's children will likely be indistinguishable from the secular West. Is that the kind of world we want to live in? Our kids to live in? A world practically devoid of the remembrance of the one God and all things sane? I obviously can't speak for you, but for my own self, I can personally say, count me out of it. I'm not going to sit here and just watch my brothers and sisters, those who claim to believe in God alone, believe in Judgment Day, His prophets and angels, and all the other aspects of this holy creed, get duped into going to hell. I'm not going to let this happen without at least something of an effort on my end to reroute this dark trajectory. So, again, how in the world do we end up here? There is a mosque in practically every neighborhood in the West, and no shortage of donations that get dropped in their boxes. They have had lots of funding, lots of time, and unquestioning support from their respective congregations, yet somehow have been run over by the secular atheist. All of their so-called Muslim children go to the atheist, secular public schools for most of their week to be taught beliefs that are completely incompatible with the Quran. And we wonder why they have ended up the way they are. If these houses, and by these houses I mean the mosques, were truly of God, that were doing everything right, then why would our Lord let them get so decisively trampled upon by their enemies? Why do the wicked have all of the reins of power here? Clearly, something is not adding up. Well, it is my thesis here today that the vast, vast majority of mosques that exist in this world today have lost their way and follow a religion which is completely foreign to the Quran. This is why they have failed so miserably in the West, and it seems that God has forgotten them. In truth, the real reason behind their shortcoming is that they, and many of us, have forgotten God himself, which is why he has left us here collecting our bitter receipts. So, what are my exact criticisms of the mosques today? As a Muslim and a man committed to the truth above all else, what are my personal gripes with their institution, which claims to be for God? The first glaring problem I can think of is that the majority of people who call themselves Muslim have allied themselves with a body of literature that is foreign to the Word of God, treating it equal to, and in fact above, the Quran itself. Of course, I am talking about the Hadith. Listen, the facts are this. There is no justification within the Quran which tells us to follow this hadith stuff, which came hundreds of years after the Prophet Muhammad died, and therefore he could have had no ability to oversee what people have said about him and determine if it is true or false. It is now becoming crystal clear, especially in the last 10 to 20 years, that many things that have been ascribed to him in their most quote-unquote authoritative texts, which they call their Sahih Hadiths, are forgeries that directly contradict God's final revelation. To take these words of men, i.e. the Hadith, and hold them to be equally authoritative to the words of God would be breaking the first and most important commandment, which is to worship God alone, making no equals with him. To say that these supposed words of Muhammad, which are not even Muhammad's own words, but simply very doubtful rumors about what people who existed hundreds of years after him say he said, that have been decided upon by the scholars as authoritative holds equal, or in fact any weight in our faith comparable to the verbatim words of God himself, the Holy Quran, is idolatry. You are exalting man's words to the status of divinity, which should only be given to God's words. Nothing comes even close to the Quran, because God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, is its author. This includes the Hadith too, which pales in comparison and is superfluous to the glorious Quran. If you are interested in seeing a full refutation of the Hadith, you may watch my video titled, A Defense of Prophet Muhammad, David Wood and Hadith Exposed, which is linked below. In it, along with refuting and putting in his place the worst opponent of Islam on the internet, Mr. David Wood, I also expose how the Hadith is completely contradictory to the Quran and the source of much of the Muslim world's problems. It is a 2-hour-long documentary where I seek to demonstrate the true character of Muhammad in the Quran, defending his history and personality with primary source quotations. I clear the last prophet of God's name from the people who have tarnished his reputation the most, which are certain types of Christians, and, sad to say, Hadith-following Muslims, which have said many terrible things about him. No, Muhammad was not a money-hungry, tyrannical warlord who married a 6-year-old girl. He was a shy, humble, meek man who married adult women, had compassion for even his worst enemies, and oftentimes had a tough time even standing up for himself out of fear of hurting other people's feelings. This is all demonstrated in detail in my video. Once again, the link for that will be in the description under the tab, The True Character of Muhammad in the Quran. So that is the first problem with the mosques, the reason for which I feel they have been forsaken by God, their adoption of an apostate literature which contradicts their foundational scripture. The second point of contention I have with many of the mosques is their seeming unwillingness to say anything controversial which may make them face persecution from their government. The fact that 9/11 was not only an inside job, but the fact that no planes hit the Twin Towers on that day, and the whole charade was a hoax designed by the governments of the world to forever frame the Muslim people as terrorists and justify invasions in our countries, should be taught to every man, woman, and child. This great fraud of the September attacks has left such a lasting, enduring reputation on every brown person, and Muslim in general, that it should be discussed in every mosque. Our people are not responsible for that crime, but it was the governments of the world who carried out that plot and framed us for it. 9/11 is just only one small example, though. There are many, many other quote-unquote conspiracy theories, which are really just conspiracy facts, avoided by the mosques due to their controversy, like the fact that the monetary system in the West is an ungodly scam based on usury, the fact that the so-called healthcare system is a predatory empire which doesn't try to cure anybody, but instead makes money off of human suffering, the fact that sodomite propaganda is being promoted to the masses, including our children, and the fact that the thing which I will call the C-19er, to avoid censorship, was a hoax perpetrated by the powers that be to greatly expand their police state, censorship incentives, and surveillance systems worldwide in order to create their New World Order, and much more. These governments that have occupied our lands are de facto terrorist regimes, and the mosques seem to say nothing of it. They appear to be more concerned with not being labeled extremists while they live their comfortable, well-funded lives, avoiding topics that are hard to deal with due to the abject persecution they bring. That is my second problem with them. They're at the very least lack of awareness, or if not, perhaps lack of willingness to address the real geopolitical situation going on in the world. And lastly, my third trouble with the mainstream mosques, which can also be put into the category of conspiracy facts, is their complete ignorance on the true nature of the earth. It may sound as a shock to you, my viewer, that the Quran, the Bible, and in fact all of the ancient scriptures teach the earth is flat and stationary. This is the only model of the world which is compatible with those texts and also scientifically provable. This flat earth conspiracy, which should really be called the globe earth conspiracy, is one of the biggest lies of the modern world, we are told, and goes in line with what I said earlier about the endemic corruption of the governments of the world. Everything you have been told about where you live is a fabrication, and the space agencies are a shameless hoax. For a fully detailed presentation on the subject of flat earth, where I demonstrate the science, the history, the philosophy, the verses in the Bible and Quran proving it, and much more, you can read my book titled The Flat Earth Manifesto, which is linked in the description. This work runs to nearly 1,200 pages and is practically a textbook on not only the topic of flat earth, but the subject of physics proper, and I expose the biggest fraudulent religion of the West, which is science worship, otherwise known as scientism. As with all of my work, it too is available for free. No, you do not live on a pathetic speck of dust spinning around in the middle of nowhere in space. You live in a brilliant, intelligently designed terrarium created by God and are at the center of the universe. Again, to learn more, the link to the Flat Earth Manifesto will be in the description. Those right there are my 3 biggest scores against the mosques of today. There are more points I could bring up, but these are the major ones. These are the controversies which have estranged me from the rest of the so-called Muslim world. Believe me when I say that I would love to join them, and that it hurts me so deeply that I have to pit myself up against the very institution I was born and raised in, the mosques I attended from childhood, whose carpets upon which I walked, stood, prayed, and listened to the preaching in my earliest years. But that is the price to pay for the truth. My commitment to God and what is right is more important than my emotional attachments to a place that was once dear to my heart. Simply put, this is why I think God has forsaken us. This is why I think that the mosques have been steamrolled by the secular atheist. It is because most of us have abandoned the word of God, neglected preaching the truth, and instead chosen comfort over courageous action. That is my thesis to why this great falling away in the West has taken place. If this sounds shocking to you, if it sounds so unbelievable that the majority of the so-called Muslim world could be deceived so badly, then I simply have these verses in the Quran to show you. In the name of God, the Almighty and the Merciful. Chapter 6, verse 116. And if thou obey most of those upon the earth, they will lead thee astray from the path of God. They follow only assumption, and they are only guessing. Chapter 25, verse 30. And the messenger will say, O my Lord, my people took this Quran as a thing abandoned. God has really predicted this a millennia ago. He knew that the people who follow what is really right are few and far between, that the majority of men and women are led astray, and the people who claim to love Muhammad the most, i.e. mainstream Muslims, would abandon the glorious Quran. God has revealed to us 1,000 years ago that this all would be the case. It is my mission, therefore, by the will of God, to band together with like-minded believers who have understood the truth and work together to build a new institution from the ground up, founded upon prudent fear. We need to start fresh,
start anew. We need to build a new mosque where people can hear the unfiltered preaching from the Quran alone, where men and women can get married, where children can play and be educated in the truth, and where the name of the Most High God, without any associate partners, can be remembered. We need a group of highly dedicated men who will raise and defend this institution with their own hands if need be, and go out into the world warning people of the punishment of God, bearing witness to the truth of his oneness. That is my mission, my viewer. If you found that this mission of mine has touched your heart and is something you want to get involved with, then feel free to contact me in the email below. I am located in Ontario, Canada, and I'm looking forward to form a community with like-minded believers who want to contribute to this great cause. I am neither a nationalist nor racially biased. If you follow the Quran alone and believe in the truth, then as far as I'm concerned, you are my brother in the faith. I prefer you over someone of my own kindred who denies God and commits corruption in the earth. My loyalties are primarily ideological, not racial. Remember, my viewer, that this life is short. Everything we do and don't do is recorded by God and will either bear witness for us or against us on the day of judgment. Hell is eternal, and I do not know about you, but as for me, I want to meet my Creator in the best state possible. I want to spend my life struggling to build up my people, the true Muslims, so that God may be pleased with me on that day. If you are interested in that, then feel free to join me. If not, then find something else good to do which will prepare you for your appointment with the Most High. That is where we are all going anyway. With that being said, I say peace and God bless to all of you good people. Take care, everyone.